To focus on specifically looking at academics in the middle school, how things kind of work with learning for our learners, some of the expectations we have, and things that parents can kind of be expecting as your kids transition up here and start doing middle school level types of work. So we'll jump right in. This is the third forum of 3, so this is the last one. Can somebody come and be a clicker? It's a little awkward.
I was just asking about that. Where's the clicker person?
We moved in here tonight because it's a little bit more comfortable than the other room we've been in, and we haven't had huge turnout, so that's why we're kind of...
And it's full packages for school supplies.
Yes, that is also the case. So tonight we're going to specifically cover... Has this been animated or something?
I don't know.
There we go. The specific model of learning that you can expect to see at the middle and high school. Very similar between the middle and high school, but obviously in 6th grade in particular, we still have a lot of support, a lot of time to build independence, but we generally stick to the same flow of how things work the further you get into the middle high school. We'll take a look at learning progressions, which are how we structure learning within each course, and Ms. Oshiak's going to show you some examples of what those look like. We'll talk a little bit about the concept of rigor, which you'll start to hear that phrase more and more in middle and high school, what that means, how learners can be kind of pushed with rigor in ways that are developmentally appropriate. We'll start having conversations about assessments. And assessments can be things like tests, which are things we're probably familiar with, quizzes, but there's also different ways of assessing. So we'll talk about what an assessment is, different types of assessments, and things like that. What our report cards look like is always a question we get. In middle school, grades start to stick a little bit more. They start to look a little bit different than in elementary school, and especially as you get towards high school, again, that starts to look differently. We'll talk about what our grades look like and what they mean. We have honor roll and high honor roll in middle school, what the criteria looks like for some of those pieces. And lastly, we'll take a look at academic support. School counseling offers a lot of resources. We have some tutoring options, and I've asked our Director of Student Services, Ms. Horn, who's in the back, to talk a little bit about what that looks like at the middle and high school. And then we'll end with some ways that you can be involved and support your child as they make the transition as well. So our model for learning, we have 3 areas that we focus all of our academics around. Most of your day is spent in what we call core instruction in the middle school. So that's reading and writing in 6th grade are 2 separate classes. Science is its own class, social studies, and math. So 5 out of your 8 periods are spent in those really critical kind of traditional academic areas. We also have unified arts, which in the elementary schools usually are called specials. So is that what you remember them being called? Yeah. So you have specials here as well. We call them unified arts because we try to build those in with other types of learning happening in the classroom. In 6th grade, that's STEM, which is science, technology, engineering, math, all kind of roped together, and also an art music class that's kind of combined together throughout the course of the year as well. And you'll also have wellness all year, which is PE, with a little bit of health topics covered as well. That class is also all year. And the last thing we work on is building in a sense of community and helping with that transition of social types of skill building, how to manage different peer interactions. The umbrella for that is social emotional learning, but what that really means is helping build in some skill with working with different types of people. That's primarily done through what we call mentoring, which is like a homeroom with 20 minutes built in to get some learning support, but also to do some learning around how to be good members of the community and things like that. Our academics have a lot of things kind of built into them that revolve around trying to grow really good learners over the course of our lives after we leave school. Critical thinking is the sense of trying to take knowledge and not just learn for the sake of learning, but learn how to use that knowledge, how to become critical and sort of asking questions about learning, how to grow into somebody who in a job someday can say, okay, here's a problem I need to solve, what do I need to learn to solve that? All of that kind of falls under that critical thinking, problem-solving umbrella. You'll notice that in a lot of our classes, assessments that teachers do and questions they ask really push learners to develop that sense of understanding why, of asking questions, of making the transfer of knowledge happen. Depth of thought and intellectual curiosity kind of go hand in hand. Our teachers want learners to build a foundation with basic knowledge, but then to deepen that. To say, okay, we've learned in math class this concept about ratios, and in science class, we're learning about collecting data. How do those 2 things come together to help us, in this case, solve a problem? Independence is at the core of what we try to build over time. That's one of the things that changes as you grow older and get towards high school. Our goal is that by the time learners get to that 11th, 12th grade, they can be really independent with their learning. And they know that if a teacher says we're learning about this, here's a resource, they've gained the skills to kind of pull from that resource and begin to learn independently. Obviously in 6th grade it doesn't start off that way. We don't just throw textbooks at our learners and say learn, but the goal by 11th and 12th grade is that more of that sort of process can be in the hands of our learners. And then always trying to build in that kind of creative lens as well as we go through. In the middle school and the high school, you will always get 2 different kind of layers of feedback. We really value soft skills. There's been a lot of research and just people in the workplace know that soft skills are critically important. We call them work habits, but those are things like being on time with assignments, being a little bit independent and knowing how to develop your learning, having high quality work. Those are things that are important regardless of where our learners go after middle and high school, so we focus on those here. In every course, your teachers will provide some opportunities to kind of learn and demonstrate your learning in those areas, and you'll get a score on each of those areas in every course. There's also the academic grade, which focuses just on the skills and knowledge taught in the class and only includes what are called summative assessments, which Ms. O will talk about in a little bit. Over time, we really, within each course, kind of build a sequence that transitions from teacher-centered teaching to learners kind of doing something with their learning. So you'll see kind of consistently in the middle school in all of our classes that at the beginning of a unit of study, the teacher's really kind of in control. They're developing the skill, delivering a lot of instruction from the front of the classroom, more of a traditional classroom kind of design. The learners will then take opportunities to practice. That could be through worksheets, group work, projects, and the teacher will give lots of feedback. And then typically after that, the teacher will provide some additional instruction if there's things they've noticed are weak or need some additional practice. And the goal is that by the end of that unit of study, the learner is able to demonstrate their learning in an independent way to earn the highest level of our scoring system. And with that, I'll turn it over to Ms. O for some learning progressions stuff.
So, thanks for coming tonight. I'm Ms. Oshiak. This is my first year as an assistant principal in this position, but I've taught here for quite a few years, and mostly I taught 9th grade at the high school, so sometimes you might have siblings that know me. The kids call me Miss O, Yak, Oshiak. You pick any one of those, I'll respond to them, okay? If you forget my name, Miss O works really well. So I'm just gonna go over kind of what learning is gonna look like for you, especially for you guys, because you're going to be looking at this going, I'm not sure what I'm doing in my classes. So what we have in every class is a set of what we call learning goals. And they're the things that by the end of the course, we want you to either understand or have some sort of skill with being able to do, right? So I pulled just what this would look like in 6th grade math, right? And so they're written like this. Usually they'll start with either it's skilled at something, so there's a process we're going to teach you, or an understanding we want you to have about a concept. Does that make sense? Yeah. Okay. Does this make sense when you look at it, parentals? You're like, if it's not, you're like, Okay. It's similar in elementary school, and you get a report card. And do you all look at your children's report cards from elementary school? It's okay if you don't. I won't judge you. Okay. Right. And it says like can add and subtract numbers, up to 20. Right. It's similar. They just look a little bit more complicated because now we're in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. Okay. So in a course, these would be the skills that we would be looking for students to work towards independence of by the end of the course, by the end of the year. Okay. So in social studies, that's a goal, right? A teacher might say, all right, Krubels, we're going to get working with maps. And so by the end of this unit, we want you to be able to analyze all the physical features on a map and be able to tell us what's common and what's different on these maps. That makes sense so far? You're like, yeah? Excellent. See, they're on already. Okay. And so here in the middle and high school, we do standards-based grading. And it's similar and a little different probably from the elementary school, but it's kind of like you grown-ups. If you took your car into the shop for inspection, anyone get their car inspected recently? Yes. Okay, did it pass? Fantastic, great. So what would happen if you got your car back and the guy said, great, your car has a C+. Would you feel pretty good about that? You'd drive it away and be like, that's super. But you'd want to know what's wrong with your car, right?
Why is it not an A?
Yeah, why didn't my car get an A? And he's like, I don't know, it's a C+ car. That's all I got for you, buddy. right? And a lot of times when we get report cards, and we used to do report cards, that's what would happen. You'd come home and you'd be like, I got a C+ in math, and parents would go, okay, I think you could work a little harder, but did you really know what that meant? You didn't know what your kids could do well. You didn't know what they needed to work on. You guys would probably go, oh, I got a C+. That's not good. My parents are going to kill me. I'm going to get something taken away. I can't come home with a C+. And you might not know. What do I have to get better at? What am I really good at, right? So we do what's called standards-based grading. So for each of those skills, we tell the students, like, okay, in history, they're really good at analyzing maps. They're great at maps, but they're not so great with primary and secondary source documents. They might need a little bit more practice. So when we do stuff in class and when the learners are in our rooms, we're constantly giving them feedback to say, you know what, here's what you're really good at. You're really good at these things, but this seems like we got to do some more practice, and this feels like you're working on it, you're almost there, maybe we just got to do a couple more things. Does that make sense? Yeah, okay, next. All right, so we grade on a 1 to 4 scale, okay? And a 3 is what we consider proficient. If you're hitting a 3, you can do the skill independently, you can do it by yourself, and you can do it over and over again. Okay, so like if you're learning to ride a bike, you can ride a bike without training wheels anywhere we go. That's a 3. Okay. We say that when students have a 2, maybe they can get on the bike, maybe they can pedal on a flat road, but the minute they get to a hill or they have to go uphill, like maybe they don't know how to switch gears, or maybe they wobble, right? Or they don't quite have their balance, right? A 1 would be, oh, we still need the training wheels and we have to help you like learn how to steer. Maybe we're not even ready for gears yet, okay? And a 4 is like, not only can you go down that hill, but you're like, yo, Miss Oshiak, look at this trick I can do. I figured out how to do a wheelie on my bike. I can ride with one hand, right? You've done something that we haven't taught you, and you've been like creative with it. You've done something a little bit different. You've applied it to a new situation. And that's the same way we look at our skills. Okay, what can you do by yourself over and over again? Where can you be a little bit creative? And what's really nice about this here at Conant Middle High School is that sometimes you guys come to us and say, hey, Mrs. Oshiak, I have an idea. For that skill, can I build you a model? And the teacher's gonna go, yeah. Or you can go, hey, Miss Oshiak, what if I made a song about that instead of doing that writing assignment? And the teacher go, yeah. So sometimes you get to go to the teacher and say, I have an idea. And as long as it shows us the skill, there you go. Yeah? You're like, I don't even know what that is, but now I have ideas. Yes. Okay. Okay, so we're gonna take that 1 to 4 and we're gonna look at what that looks like for that map skill. You're doing amazing, by the way. Really good job.
I'm hoping that
You're like a 3.
I'm gonna be at a 4 because I'll.
That's right. Yeah. Okay, so can you take my little dots here and make them a little bigger so that anyone like me who's blind, you can see. Keep going. Keep going. One more. Beautiful. And we'll scroll down. Okay. So here's our, scroll up a little bit, sorry.
Now I'm under pressure.
Okay. All right. So here's that skill. We want to see what learners can do with maps. And then we go down. Okay. A little more. Okay. So this is the 3. These are the things we're going to show to our learners and say, here's what we're looking for you to show us that you can do. Notice what's missing? Can anyone tell me what's not here? You're like, I didn't know we were getting quizzed tonight. You're supposed to be giving me information. Do we tell you how you're going to show us that? Do you see like quiz or test? Do you know why? Because there can be lots of different ways that you do that, right? So sometimes you might be able to make a song. Sometimes you and your friends are going to be able to get up and talk to someone else and do a little skit. Sometimes you're going to write a newspaper and say, we're going to make a newspaper and we can show you how this works. Other times your teacher might say, we're going to make a museum and everybody's going to make an artifact to show you how this works, right? So this just says what it is we're looking for you to do, but there's all sorts of choices for how you can show us how you know how to do that. And sometimes, yeah, it's stuff like a paper, because you have to learn how to write, you know, and sometimes it's a test, but a lot of times it's not. It's other things, which is the real beauty of this. Parentals, do you have questions? Are you sure?
I just
check.
want to note that all of these things that Ms. Oshiak is showing you are on our website. So if parents if you get your learner's report card and you're looking and you're like, oh, I want to know more about what this was supposed to be because you got a 1 on this and I'm really concerned, you can always click and find that learning goal or ask us and we can send it to you. And you can see what all of these I can statements, which are just plain language, this is what we're looking for them to be able to do or know. You have access to that anytime on demand and we're happy to answer questions, meet with you. Teachers are happy to do that. But we make all of this available easily on our website so you can dig in a little deeper if you have questions about any of that stuff.
And this list looks kind of long, right? Like if I was a 6th grader, I'd be like, oh, that's a lot. But if I said to you, if I were to give you an outline of a map, could you tell me some of the continents? How many of you could do that? If I give you an outline, could you say, oh, weird, because that's one of the things, right?
One thing, right?
So there's some of these things you're going to be able to do, and then we're going to say, oh, you're really good at that. So now I'm going to challenge you a little bit and have you maybe make a different map for me, right? So don't be intimidated, because some of this stuff you're already going to know how to do, and then we're going to jazz it up a little bit. Okay, can you go down to the 2 a little? Well, no, yeah, keep going. No, you're right.
Oh, do you want to go 2? Oh,
Yep.
that way.
Right? And so you can see, I don't know if you were looking at the verbs, right? But so this is just like, I can use a map, I can use a map, I can use a map to identify. The verbs in the level 3 were like, I can analyze a map. I can take it apart and I can talk to you about how the pieces work together, right? That's the difference between like a level 2 thinking when Mr. Dustin was talking about rigor, right? Okay, I can give you a map and you can point things out, but can you talk to me about why things are the way they are? What do you notice about how these formations are put together? Why or how might that impact the water or the food or the climate? That's the difference, okay? Next.
Back to our Google
You can
Slides.
go back to my presentation. Yeah, you can go. Okay. So we do lots of assessing. You hear that word a lot in our school, assess, 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 right? And so we have 2 types of assessments, formative and summative, okay? One goes in the grade book and like is part of your grade, and one just lets everybody know how you're doing. You, the teacher, your parentals, your guardians, grandma, and grandpa, everyone, okay? Formative, we like to say, is if you're cooking, it's when you're tasting stuff and you're going, ooh, too much salt. Do any of you bake with your parents? Right. Have you ever started to make something and then you've taken it like a little finger, right? I won't judge you. And you just let you go, I don't love that right now. I see some people smiling. Yeah, right? So that's formative stuff. It's when you're starting to learn to bake and like maybe mom or dad or grandma or grandpa or your friend is like, oh, you need to put a little more sugar. That doesn't taste, or try it. What if you put some maple syrup in there, right? So during that time in class, what that looks like is you're doing something, right? And maybe you're working on answering some questions with a partner and the teacher's going around and going, do they understand? Where's their understanding, right? So it's for the teacher to sort of know, where are you at in the class, right? Where do we have to have some more practice? Who gets it? Who doesn't? Who might need to work with a peer? Who needs something a little different, right? And so we call those formative assessments. They look a lot like maybe an exit ticket when you're walking out the door. They look a lot like turning and talking to your partner or writing a practice paragraph. And the teacher's going to say, oh, you forgot to put in evidence here, or you didn't quite cite this right. Let's go back and look at our notes on citing something. And then you go back and you redo it, and the teacher says, oh, you got it, right? And so that goes into our grade book. We have 2 grade books, a formative and a summative. So parentals, when you're looking at the formative grade book, it just lets you know, how are they doing in practice so far, right? Are they at a 1, a 2, a 3, or 4? So you can already tell, like, oh, they're struggling a little bit with this. Or, oh, so far so good, they seem to be nailing it. Oh, or they're getting 4s. Like, what are we doing to challenge them, right? So when you look in the formative grade book, think like practice, right? If you play sports and you're going to practice and the coach is saying, like, pick your elbow up or put your elbow down or turn sideways, right? That's not going on like your player scorecard. Your stuff when you get scored is in the game. So then we do our summative assessments, and that is when your soup goes out of the restaurant and the guests taste it. It's too late to make changes then, isn't it? Then someone's going to tell you, oh, that's super great. Or like, ooh, did you use salt? Like a lot of salt, right? Yeah. So that's when we give our end of unit things, or we might do a few things and say, okay, we've done 3 bits of practice. Now I want to see if you can do it by yourself, right? So then that might be, hey, yesterday you wrote a paragraph with your friend, and then today we're writing a paragraph by yourself, and then tomorrow is going to be the summative. So I'm going to tell you when you're doing it with your friend, nailed it, made some mistakes. Today I'm going to have you try it by yourself, and I'm going to say like, great, doing a great job, made a mistake, go back and fix that. Tomorrow I'm not going to tell you anything, and I want to see if you can do it by yourself. That's what we call a summative. It's when the teacher takes their hands off the wheel and says, show me what you know and you can do. Does that make sense? Yeah, okay. Okay. So formative does not go into the grade book. A lot of students will say, learners will say, so it doesn't count? And I'm like, what happens if you don't show up to practice? Do any of you play sports? What happens if you don't go to practice? What happens when you don't go to practice for days or weeks and then the game comes around?
Hide.
You hide? Why do you hide? Why? Why is that?
You're gonna embarrass yourself.
Oh, because you're like, I missed things. Oh, they were working on that and I wasn't here. Yeah, right? Level 4 understanding. She's got it. Yeah. Right? And so it's really important to do the formative, right? Because that's where you're learning and that's where you screw up and you make the mistakes and then we embrace failure. I was at a dance institute and the dance teacher said, make a mistake, bake it a cake, right? Embrace it because you don't learn if you don't make mistakes, right? So all of this is how you learn. You get to make mistakes and it doesn't count against you. And then here is where we get to see, okay, show me what you can do. Let's see if you can do it by yourself. Does it make sense? Beautiful. Okay, next one. So, parentals and littles. Little bigs. I don't have a name for you yet. Okay. This is what a grade book looks like. So we use a platform called Otis. Do we have any parentals or guardians here? Like you have siblings and you know what this looks like already? This is brand new to you. You're like, I do. I got it. Okay, good. You can ignore me then.
I do have questions after.
Okay. Excellent. So when you look at this grade book, it looks a little intimidating. It's really not. There's just a lot of buttons, okay, and you learn which ones to pay attention to and which ones not to. So parentals, I actually took a picture of what the grade book looks like for you, okay? So I think you were mailed codes to log in and sign up for Otis. Yay, nay, maybe, not yet. You will be mailed codes.
Beginning of September.
Beginning of September to log in and sign up for Otis. Okay, and you're going to see that your learner or learners, if you have more than one, are here. So you pick the one you want to look at, and it's going to give you all their classes. Okay, and it's going to tell you who their teacher is, and we don't do points, so you can just ignore this column right here. Okay, and you're going to see kind of an overall how are they doing on that 1, 2, 3, 4 scale, right? Meets, approaching, exceeds. Okay, and you're gonna go, well, that tells me they're doing okay, but like it says approaching, and I'm not really sure what that means. That doesn't tell me enough information. No problem. Like, so you can click into the class, okay, and then you can see all of the assignments for that class. So we want to look at English. We want to see how this student is doing with Dr. Westman. So you can see what Dr. Westman gave for assignments, when they were due, if they were submitted or not, were they submitted on time or were they late? I don't know about any of you guys, but sometimes I procrastinate and it gets in, but I might get in the next day or 2 days, right? And then we can see if it was graded and if the teacher left any comments, right? So you can get more information. So I don't know, you can see up here, these are assessments, right? So these are all the things, formative, summative, that you can see that we give the Krubels on how they're doing. But then you can also, next slide, you can look at standards. And when you look at a standard, it will tell you how many times your learner has attempted the standard. And guess what? You get to see the same thing, you all, okay? So you can see, oh, they've done this 7 times, right? And you can see when it was given. Okay, and you can see for each of these how they did. So you can see over time how your learner's doing on that goal, right? So maybe the first one, we gave them a pretty easy pre-assessment, or we gave them a little quiz and they did okay, and then we gave them an activity and they nailed it, and then we got a little harder, or they were just having an off day and they tanked that, but then the next 2 things they've done pretty good with, they've nailed that, right? And so we're doing pretty well. We had like one, and maybe that was an off day, someone wasn't feeling well, but overall we're getting this standard. Do you follow me so far? I know this is new. Okay, you following me so far? You in the front row? This is new. You're like, I don't know, I just see a bunch of dots. It's fine. Okay. So it will look similar on a report card. You're gonna get an envelope, and it's gonna be like, you're gonna get a packet, and you're gonna go, why are they sending packets home for report cards? Okay, it's because they look the same way as they do in the grade book. So when that quarter comes around, okay, you're gonna see, I took a snapshot of social studies, the total grade, so here's their overall grade, and then you're gonna see the standards that were assessed in that quarter and how they did on them. And you'll get that for every class, hence what looks like a little packet. So you no longer are going to get A, B, C, and you'll know exactly what that means, where they're doing well, where there are some gaps. Capiche? Do you know how you answer capiche?
Capiche?
Yeah! Level 4. Boom! Okay. Next one. Okay, and then we also have work habits. Right, so you have the skills, and then we have the work habits, and you get scores for those too, right? So how well do you do working by yourself? Am I constantly saying, hey you get back on task, you stop talking to your best friend, hey you two over there, you stop giggling, right? How well do you meet deadlines? I don't do well in this category all the time, okay? How well do you are participating in class? Do you raise your hand when you have to do group work? Are you one of those shy bees that maybe you don't say anything, or it's hard for you to talk in groups, right? And then how do you do when it comes to your quality of learning? Are you always trying to do your best work? If your teacher gives you a checklist, are you looking at it to make sure? Are you like, that looks good, I don't know, it's fine, I'll turn it in. Right. Okay. So that's your report card. Questions? Comments? Funny jokes? Beautiful. Is that? I'm done. That's my piece.
So before we go here, I realized that because this is Forum 3, I just jumped in without anybody introducing themselves. So I just want to pause for a second and give a chance to do that because it's rude not to introduce, and also we want to make sure you know who people are when you need us. So I'm Mr. Dustin, I'm the school principal, and I just want to say again, I appreciate all the learners being right in the front row, kind of ready to go, and I appreciate families coming. I know this stuff can be dry, but this is really important to kind of learn about your new school and making sure that we're kind of all on the same page. So thank you for being here. We'll just kind of go around that way.
Hi, I'm Jen Martin, the Director of Student Services. I'm district-wide, so you might already know me, you might not, but that's no.
Kim Baker, Director of Counseling for the Middle High School.
And Marie Oshiak, Assistant Principal of Teaching and Learning for the Middle High School.
I'm the professional clicker. My name is Mrs. Summy, and I'm housed over here, and I work with all the learners, grade 6 through 12. School culture, safety, those pieces.
So the other thing I want to mention before we move on is a lot of times parents will say, how do I know, at the bare minimum, I want to know that my child is doing okay, that they're not failing at something, that they're not missing the boat entirely. There's an easy way to kind of know that. Level 2 is our absolute bottom in terms of being okay. If you see 2s across the board, your child's doing okay. If you see 3s in there, they're doing well. 4s, outstanding. If you see anything that ever drops below a 2 and stays there, that's when we get concerned. Because when something's at a level 1, as Ms. Oshiak was saying, that means that that learner hasn't even gotten to the place where they can try on their own yet. And that tells us that that skill or knowledge base is still so far out of that learner's kind of wheelhouse that they still need a lot of time and energy to kind of get that up to an acceptable level. So your child is doing fine if everything is at least at a 2. And the higher above a 2 they get, the better they're doing. Okay, that's kind of a baseline for that. So with that, I'll turn it over to you.
So I'll talk a little bit about the ways that the counseling team can support academics. And if you've had an opportunity to attend or see the last 2 forums, we talked a little bit about how school counseling collaborates and partners with learners and families in a variety of different ways. And so some of this information is repetitive, but I just wanted to share that there's a 6th grade counselor, so that will be Ashley Benz, and she'll be in the classrooms. You'll see her in the lunchroom. You'll see her on recess duty. You'll see her at evening events. So really, as you come in as a 6th grader and as a 6th grade parent, a lot of what we do is outreach, push in. We want you to get to know us. We invite you to come to the counseling center if you need support, but we're going to come find you. We're going to get to know you, especially all the learners, so that when you're feeling like maybe you want to hide, you got behind, you didn't complete your work on time, or maybe you're struggling with a new friend group or kind of finding your place in the middle school, we don't want to add extra stress by having you come find us. We'll be available, you'll see us, and we're here to support you. And we do that in a variety of different ways. We do that universally by being in your class. Miss Benz will be in your transition study period, which happens right after lunch. Probably you'll see her at least once a week, sometimes more, doing some classroom guidance, talking a little bit about how you can manage some of the new things that you'll see as you transition from elementary to middle school. And some of that is specifically focused around the academics. We know you're coming from the elementary school and we're saying you're going to have 8 classes, you're going to have a variety of teachers. We provide lots of resources for you to figure out kind of how you're doing and what you need to do, but it's a lot to manage, right? It's, 8 different teachers, maybe all with some different styles. And so we want to help you manage that. And some of that comes under the term of executive functioning skills, right? It's things that we all need to be successful. So I need to manage my time, I need to plan, I need to have some self-control. When things get tough in the classroom, I need to figure out how to push through that, right? To not be afraid to challenge yourself, to be curious about new things. And that if you're not doing well and you're in those ones and you need some support, you can talk to your school counselor. If you're not sure how to have a conversation with your teacher, or you're not really sure what you need to be more successful, you can talk with your school counselor. Okay? So that's really, really important. You're not alone in this. You don't have to figure it out on your own. Everything that you can see about how you're doing in the classroom, we can also see as a school counselor. So we'll run progress reports, we'll be checking in to see how things are going. But if you walked in and you said, hey, Mrs. Baker, I'm really struggling in social studies, I'm not really sure what I can do to improve how I'm learning in the classroom, I'm not sure where I'm really being successful, we can get on and look at that together, and we can help you figure that out. We can help you have conversations with your teacher, with your parents and guardians about that. And I think if we go to the next slide, you'll see that. We can do that in small groups. Sometimes we find that there's a bunch of learners that are struggling with time management. So we might bring you together to work together as a team to figure out some new skills that you can bring into the classroom. But also we can meet with you one-on-one to help, and we can do that. Sometimes that's an ongoing regular thing that we do. Sometimes it's short-term depending on what you need. We can help you with other resources like scheduling time after school with your teacher. We do have a free program that's called tutor.com, and you'll learn more about that in the fall. So if you're home and you're struggling with something that you have to do in math and you're not sure how to do a math problem, you can get on for free to tutor.com, share that math problem with them, and they're going to give you feedback and they're going to walk you through that, okay? So we can help share resources and help you feel more successful. And I would say that to parents too, like if you're not sure how your learner's doing, or you're not sure how to help them be more successful, we always want you to talk with the teacher usually first. That's a good place to start, but sometimes that's overwhelming too. For you as new middle school parents coming in, who should I contact? Which teacher do they have? What's the best way of going about that? You can reach out to a member of the school counseling department, you can reach out to Ashley Benz, you can reach out to me, and we'll help you make that connection. We'll help you figure out what the best way to support your learner to be more successful. And that's true with everything. We talked in the past about kind of that social emotional piece, but also with academics or career. I mean, we're going to be working together for the next 7 years. So we want you to get to know us and what services and resources we can provide. We want to celebrate your successes, so when things are going well, we want to hear that too. If you feel like you need something more to be challenged with, we can help with that. So don't be afraid to reach out, especially if you're not sure. We want to partner and support you.
Is Mrs. Horn still in the
Yeah,
back?
Yeah, I just walked
Oh.
around. I didn't have to walk through. So sometimes, no matter, and I'm not nearly as much fun as Miss O, sometimes no matter how hard you're trying, things can get hard and things are more of a struggle. That could be for a lot of different reasons. And that's kind of where our office comes in, and our office of student services. So sometimes, and this is kind of for parents as well, if you have your student is really kind of struggling, we would do the same thing. We'd ask that you reach out to the guidance department, and they will be part of that process of referral and what other things we have within the district to provide supports and services. And sometimes that is us, and we come in and we can support through IEPs. Sometimes kids who are in sports or for any other number of reasons. There's physical things. You could break a foot. You could do all sorts of things that you may need other supports and services. So going through guidance is a good way to start to get any other additional supports and services that you feel like you guys feel like you might need. You're struggling and things just aren't getting better, or as parents, if you have, there's really been a lot of struggle, it continues. That's what the Office of Student Services is for. We have case managers across across 6th grade through 12th grade. It's a little bit different than what it looks like at the elementary school, but we group kids as they need to, and we provide services as outlined. So if you have questions about that or who your contact person is, guidance is a good place to start. I'm also on the district website. You can also reach out to Mr. Dustin, and we all work together collaboratively, regularly, to do the best we can so that you guys can get all that you need out of what your education and keep moving forward. Yay!
Thank you. That was fun.
Yeah.
So if you are wondering about, okay, what else do we do here besides the academics and social emotional learning? We are really fortunate to be able to offer lots of things for kids to do. You guys have the ability to get involved with clubs, with activities. It's amazing what you can do. You might actually have to say no to certain things because you might be sort of spread out too thin. But anything that we have here to offer, we can help guide you with that, whether it's talking with the school counselor. Down in the cafeteria right behind us, our director of school activities and athletics is there. So at lunchtime, you can pop your head in. But we have so many things that you can do, and these are just a few things. And I would say that if you're starting to wonder, like, oh, I'd like to do baking club. Well, do we have that? Yes, there's like a whole list. I could probably fill like 10 slides of things that we do. So what I did was, if you go to the next one, is on our website, which I want to kind of say to you a lot, is on our website has so much information. So, nice segue. On our website, you can look at any of the tabs that will have information, and these are things that we offered this year, and you can see it goes on and on. It explains where it is and who is the person that's leading it. I mean, it's amazing, and I think rumor is we might have a fishing club here too this coming year, not sure. But there's so many things, and we offer them at various times in the year, or sometimes it's throughout the year. So, kids can sign up for, like, if they want to do, baking club was probably at the top somewhere. And it's offered, and sometimes it's with just middle schoolers, and there's some activities that might be also, maybe have a high school mentor that comes in. But they're very, very popular, and the good thing is that you can do it after school, and it's free for you. Question?
Do you guys do drama club?
Yes!
Because guess who used to?
Did you know she was excited?
Could you tell?
You come see me and I'll connect you with it. Yeah. And we have some 6th graders in it last year who are in our musical and in our fall show, and they were phenomenal.
Some elementary kids in the
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And some staff members.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
We invite all.
You will have made Mrs. Swift so happy. Oh my goodness gracious.
Does anybody else have any questions about that part?
I just wanted to quickly go back to something that Mrs. Summy said about this piece here with sports in the middle school. In the high school, when you get to high school in a few years, there are absolutely cuts. There's varsity, there's junior varsity. That's a whole different world from what we talk about in middle school. In middle school, we want you to try anything you want to try. So if you have never, for a day in your life, stepped foot on a field hockey field or a basketball court or a soccer field, and you decide, I want to give it a shot, you sign up a Family ID, we'll put you on a team, and we'll teach you. By the time you get to high school, if it wasn't your thing and you're not cut out for varsity, that's okay. We just make a decision then. But we want everybody in the middle school to try things. So if you've never done a sport, go out for the tryouts and you'll make a team. It's guaranteed in the middle school. If you can't buy equipment, we have equipment here. We just want our middle school learners to try things. Okay? So don't be shy about any of our clubs or activities that are open to you. We will get you on the field. We'll get you in band class if you've never played an instrument. Whatever it is, in middle school we want our learners to have access to everything. And then in high school, that's when we start to get more selective because that's a different kind of type of learning.
I should also add that if there's something that you don't see on the list, a lot of these clubs were formed because people went to Mrs. Lindstad and were like, hey, we really like to bake. Who's going to do a baking club? And she was like, I'll find someone. So if you
Just so
don't
happened to be
see-
Mr. Baker. who
Just-
does
yes.
baking
Not
with
me.
baking.
Mr. Baker with the baking.
I know.
So if there's something you don't see that you're interested in, you go to Mrs. Lindstad right during your lunchtime. You can pop right into her office. She talks to learners all the time. And you can say, hey, I want to do this thing. That's why we're working on getting a fishing club, because the boys and girls flooded our office and were like, we want a fishing club. And she was like, okay, I'll make a fishing. So it comes from you. We create the things that you want. So if there's something you want, find her. We tried really hard to make it happen. Yeah.
So when you want to do any of these things, like after-school programs or athletics, we do have a program that we use. It's called Family ID. And what that is for parents to sign up your learner and get information in terms of like emergency contacts, information that we can make sure, when it's offered and you guys know if they're going to be absent or if we need to cancel or something like that. So if any of the kids, whether it be a club or athletics, we use Family ID. It's an easy way to keep track of who's in, who's out, and also information about what phone number we may need after school. So, question, sir?
What's the best way to figure out whether or not there are conflicts? I saw there's a lot of information on
Yep.
there, but it's very general.
Yep.
So if we have a student who's interested in multiple things, how do we figure
Right.
out what they can do?
Right. So this was last year's list,
Right.
but it will say what days they're offered and what times.
Okay.
And most of the time, if a learner wants to do, let's say, I'll go back to the baking club because that's what we're all thinking about and I'm hungry. That'll be offered on a such and such day. That if there happens to be a game and it's an away game, that might be a conflict, but it's not like you can't do baking club at all. So that's the nice thing about it. There's a theme here about middle schools. We want you to try a lot of things, and we want you to get lots of experiences, and it's okay to make mistakes.
So if there's like a year-long club, but something else starts in the winter but doesn't have a set schedule yet, how do you manage that at the beginning when you're trying to commit to something for the year?
You can reach out to Heather Lindstad because she's our clubs and activities director. And so she knows, she has like a big board and can tell you when things are running when. So you can tell her, my son or daughter wants to do soccer, but also magic, but also baking club. And she can,
Yeah, we that's not a problem. We have a lot of learners who did Magic's a great club to use as an example. It was tons and tons of learners, but some of them weren't there for entire chunks of the year exactly because they had a sport that started up. Or if that met twice a week, they might only come once a week. The advisors are pretty open about that. And clubs like drama that have performances and things, they might have a little more structure they'd have to build in, but we work around learners' other schedules to make that happen in the middle school in particular.
did that answer your question?
Yes.
You had your hand up right in the front here.
Yeah, I just wondering, do they do cheerleading in middle school?
Yep.
Cool.
The athletics, obviously, is a whole nother category, and athletics has its own website, and actually it's pretty neat because it already has what's going on for this week coming up, and tryouts start next week for the high school. But also, the good thing is if you're if you're in middle school, those things don't start up until school starts, so you don't have to worry about next week running out and have to get all your stuff ready. So this, again, the website has all sorts of information. We try to make sure that we get that out to you, and parents the same thing. Once kids get involved with a particular club or a team, you'll get information if there's, if there's a rain date or something like that or cancellation, that information is there. If you are going to be, all of the incoming 6th graders do have to have a physical prior to the start of school. But as long as you have an appointment, and let's say you can't get in until September 2nd, as long as we know that you have that appointment coming up. 6th graders and 9th graders have to have a physical coming in. So.
If your appointment isn't until like the beginning of September, just let the health office know that. So there's some flexibility. We just have to make sure that you have it at least scheduled.
Or if you had one in November, we take the last one till November.
Yeah.
You don't have to go get one, else your insurance won't let you. So they just have to have a current physical.
Last year. What questions do folks have about any of this, but also anything else?
I remember.
It's-
Yeah, I remember you had a
Well,
question.
mine was, as far as like the level 3, level 4 stuff, so I have an 8th grader,
Yeah.
and some of the classes she's had more trouble, like getting level 4 work.
Like
So
the
is it on-
opportunity? Are you talking about having the opportunity to do it?
I guess, so she has some that she does very well, and she's getting 3s and 4s, and then some she gets straight 3s. So is it on the student
For level
to
4, it's,
push, or is it on, or can, like, does the teacher?
It-
Because to me, it seems like it's more,
it could be either or, but for level 4 really emphasizes the learner having fully kind of grasped that concept, and the learner saying either, hey teacher, I'm already done, I'd like to do this with this next.
so that's, I think, part of the issue is she has done that, and she has kind of been brushed off.
So I think that's one of those opportunities that Miss Baker was kind of
Yeah.
talking about, either giving the
Good job.
teacher a call and saying, hey, I'm a little confused, my child is coming home and telling me that you're not really giving opportunities for this. Can we talk about that, because I know my child's in 7th,
Because I got
8th
a 6th grader
grade.
now, and
Right.
obviously she's gonna have the same teachers, so now I know
Yeah, so either
there's a
call the
couple
teacher.
teachers that it's been a struggle with.
Yeah, either call the teacher to get some more information and or call school counseling and say, hey, I just want to follow up. You know, my child is saying that they really need to be pushed a little more in this class and the teacher's not really giving an opportunity according to my child. Can you kind of help me with that? Because sometimes what happens in middle school too, and this is totally normal, is kids they're satisfied with a 2 or a 3 and they'll say, oh, well, I got a 3, I'm great. And they'll go home and mom and dad will say, wait a second, you really should be doing a 4. And the learner will kind of say, well, you know. So it's good to get that information kind of squared away with the teacher too, because there could be a miscommunication somewhere. Your child might be saying to their brain, hey, I'm happy, I'm at a 3. You know, to heck with what mom and dad want. That's very normal in middle school. So we just have to make sure we kind of close that communication loop if that ever happens.
Yeah, and I think sometimes it can be hard for a learner to approach a teacher and advocate because maybe they're not sure, am I really at a level 4 or am I doing okay? Maybe I need to be doing more at level 3. So a school counselor can like practice with the learner, give them some language,
Right.
do some role playing.
That's what I said, she has asked sometimes. and
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I said, it really
I'd say just connect with that
seems
teacher
like
and then follow up with the
more on
counselor.
the class, like certain classes,
Right.
like I said, straight 3s and others half 4, so
Yeah.
it doesn't quite add up.
Yeah, understood.
And I don't know if it's like overall, so the paper published high honors and honor roll.
hmm
I don't know if it was accurate, but the last 2 quarters, not one middle schooler made high honors.
So the middle school,
So if that's the case, to me, that's more than just my student, that's a broader picture.
so honor roll and high honor roll require, they're not just grades.
No, I
Like-
understand that,
Like
but
back in the day, it used to be, okay, I have an average of 80, I'm on honors. I have an average of 90, I'm on high honors. We emphasize 3 kind of layers of learning for our learners. We look at attendance and only specifically unexcused or excused absences. If a learner is missing a lot of school without a good reason, that can pull them off of the honor roll. The second piece is obviously the academic grade, which is the biggest component. And then we also look at work habits. And so to be on high honors, because that's the top kind of recognition, it requires a pretty high score in each class. It requires pretty high work habit scores, and it requires consistent attendance to school. And so what happens in the middle school a lot of times, one of 2 things is knocking every kid off of high honors more or less, and it's either the work habits components or the attendance. And I'm not, yes, I look at that
for
and I
mine,
see,
it wasn't either one of those, it was 86, 87, which is
Yeah.
kind of stuck at a 3.
yeah.
So that's what I mean, it's
Again,
more,
that can
she's kind
happen.
of being, in my opinion, I'll look into it more this year, and
Sure.
obviously with another student,
Yep.
now that I have 2. But it seems like she's almost being held back to a point.
Mhm.
She's in honors math, so she's very capable
Sure.
of that. And that's why I said, looking at, I don't know how many middle school students you have, but
286 last year.
not
Trust
one
me,
in
trust me, I look at that too. And
quarters.
Mike, when I see that statistic, I have one of 2 things I can do. I can lower the expectation and say, I want kids to be on high honor, so I'm going to lower it to make that happen. Or we can look as a school and say, how are we supporting kids, and look at what the data point is that's keeping them off of high honors. I chose the second route because
Yeah.
I'm not willing to lower our expectations for kids. Middle school is a time when we need to push them, and the research bears that out. And traditionally, middle schools don't do a good job with that. And this district was no different. 10 years ago, middle school was a time where we saw a lot of this happening because we kind of overemphasized that social emotional piece at the expense of the academic learning. We've raised the expectations substantially with learners and have been building up that support. And I fully expect that this year, with some of the work our teachers did to kind of work on that support lens, we'll see more kids getting onto that high honors threshold. But I was unwilling as the school's leader to say, lower those standards down to get kids on there. I'd rather look at what's.
No, I
causing them
agree.
to
I
get
think
there
it's
and
just,
boost them up.
to me, it's also the support of the
Right.
teachers and administrators.
So I'd say for any parent, if you ever do notice that, that's kind of that conversation with the teacher and then reaching out to school counseling is the best route for that, for sure. Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate it. Other questions on this? Generally, fears about middle school, things you're excited about, whatever. This is kind of our last forum, so we'll just open it up.
Is there a basketball team?
Absolutely. Last year, our middle school signups were enormous, and we actually had 3 girls teams and 3 boys teams. And it was great. Makes gym space really hard to do a lot, but it was great.
Oh, we have a brand new gym floor.
Yeah.
It's awesome. The floor's amazing.
Should we expect a lot of homework for sixth graders?
It's a great question. Probably not. And that's not because they're not getting work to do, but every 6th grader has built in after lunch every day a 45-minute period of time where they're either getting some of that classroom guidance around social skills or executive functioning, or they're having time to work with teachers and complete assignments. So we really emphasize, again, in 6th grade, just making sure that transition happens. 7th and 8th grade this year will probably get more homework than they have in the past as we're looking at some more retrieval skills, but 6th grade, you shouldn't expect to see a lot. Once in a while, but that does not mean you're off the hook if the stuff's not getting done during the day, but generally we don't see a lot of that.
Because I like to encourage parents to have, after dinner, maybe have have your learner come over and say, hey, let's log into Otis and let's look at things, and that way they can teach you and you guys can see, you can have that rich, robust conversation about
The facial expressions in the front end are just.
I think that's huge because you're going to have questions like, what does this mean? And that way you can say, hey, what was this? And they might be able to go, I don't know. Or, yeah, I didn't understand that. And I just think that's a great way, to get to know things and get a lot of information, because sometimes, as we know, information doesn't flow back and forth all the time. So that's the number one thing I will say to parents is to
Did you have your hand going up?
She's
Oh, it's
hiding.
okay. Oh, she had one. Other questions?
Just like a classroom.
So Wednesday night, we have our 6th grade barbecue, and we'll have several of the teachers there. So the focus is on having the 2 towns kind of getting a chance to come together as families. We'll serve up food. Folks are bringing some stuff through the potluck, but there'll be lots of learners there, lots of families, and most of our teachers. So we definitely encourage folks to come to that. And we're available for the whole rest of the summer. If things come up after tonight that you had questions about, if you just want to come in and meet about something, if you want to tour the facility, assuming that the HVAC worked, we will not bring you in the high school right now. It is Aliens, I think is the movie that we compared it to. There's stuff dangling, it's horrible. But we'll take you around this part of the building anyways. The point is, we're here and available. Any questions, concerns that come up, give us a call. We don't do well when people don't call us or contact us because we don't know what to do if we don't know what the problems are that people are facing. So we definitely encourage, rather than social media-ing a problem, let us know questions you have. We'll be happy to meet and help resolve anything that might come up. And otherwise, we appreciate you coming out tonight.
One more question.
Sure.
The sixth grade orientation,
Mhm.
I'm assuming that's just to drop the kids and then we come back and pick them up.
You got it.
Okay.
And there'll be a letter going home with some more information about that. It's a lot of fun activities for the learners, but yes, parent-free for that time frame. So get a little break.
Hooray!
So for that, do they need to be here the whole time?
It's like 8 to 8:30 to 11.
It's like 9 to 1:30. Are you asking because you got the time? You got your invitation card, but you have a conflict
Well,
with part of
I think I
it.
saw the time. I think it was a 3-hour block. or
Yeah.
so.
Yep.
And we can only make about the first hour and a half.
Totally fine. Just let us know.
Would she be able to
Yeah.
get a tour and all that?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yep. What will probably happen is, depending on when your child is here, they might miss some of the activities, but we'll make sure that they at least get to meet the teachers and things like
8
that.
to 11:30.
What's that?
8 to 11:30.
Oh yeah, I was thinking.
Yeah, I think she has to leave by 9:30 or 10.
Yep. No problem. All right. Thanks for coming out tonight. Have a great rest of your summer. We'll see all of you in just a few weeks.